Hello, I'm going to be talking to you today about wolves and particularly the recovery in the wild wolf population in Europe. So if you're ready, we can get started. Ladies and gentlemen, Europeans have always had a rather ambivalent attitude towards the wolf. If you go back far enough in time to the period of the Romans, for example, for the Romans, the wolf was an object of admiration. We've all heard, of course, the famous legend of Romulus and Remus and how they were suckled by a she-wolf. And it was the warlike, noble quality of the wolf that the Romans admired, and they sought inspiration in it for their legions as they marched off trying to conquer most of the known world at the time. But if you fast forward through history a little bit and arrive at the Middle Ages, for example, we find that by then the admiration has given way to fear. People in the Middle Ages were simply frightened of wolves. Wolves were dangerous animals that lived in dark forests. In many ways, they were almost the antithesis of civilization. And as a result, people at the time did pretty much everything they could to try and exterminate the wolf. And over the centuries, they were so successful that by the end of the 19th century, the wolf in Western Europe was pretty much extinct. Now, wolves did remain in the wild in the east of Europe, and that was mainly because, quite simply, there was more space, and particularly when they were persecuted, the wolves could always escape further east to the Russian steppes. But as I say, in the west of Europe, the wolf was pretty much extinct. Then if we go further forward in history again to around about the 1970s, we see another change in European attitudes to the wolf. Thanks to the work of international organizations like the WWF, and thanks also to the popularity of nature programs, people began to understand more the importance of protecting all wild animals. And as a result, the wolf in Western Europe started to stage something of a comeback as well. Just to give you some figures, in Italy, for example, the wolf population hit a low of around about 70 in the 1960s. Today, however, the population has increased to quite a healthy 600 or so. In France, the wolf population was extinct altogether by the 1960s. But thanks to the recovery of the wolf population in Italy, many individuals managed to find their way across the Alps and into France and helped to introduce a recovery of the wolf population there, so that the wolf population in France now stands at quite a respectable 150 or so. And the fact is, if you look across all the 28 member states of the European Union, a similar story can be told. Across all the member states of the EU, there are something like 12,000 wolves living in the wild. Now, that's good news in many ways, but it's not news that is welcome to everybody. For example, farmers have been quick to complain that an increase in the number of wolves will mean an increase in the number of attacks on their livestock. Wolves will happily prey on sheep and also sometimes take even bigger animals like cattle. As a result, the European Commission and national governments have been working hard to try and put in place compensation programs for the farmers. And those compensation programs take two different forms. They can be direct or indirect. The direct form of compensation is quite simple. For every animal that the farmer can prove has been killed by a wolf, the government will pay a degree of compensation. And the indirect form of compensation is more in the form of subsidies to help, for example, farmers build electric fences around their land in order to keep the wolves out. The Commission and the the Commission and the governments have also been trying to help farmers understand also that the recovery in wolf populations can actually be good for farmers. For example, wolves will prey on deer, and deer are direct competitors for sheep for pasture land. So if the wolves kill the deer, that means more pasture land for the sheep. Wolves will also attack wild boar, and wild boar are really quite a problem for farmers. They tend to go for young crops such as wheat, rye or barley, and they grub up the roots and eat them when they're still very young, causing really quite considerable damage. So again, if the wolves can kill the wild boar, then that's got to be good news for the farmers. But the main problem remains a problem of perception. There hasn't been a single fatality from a wolf attack in the last 50 years, and yet we continue to think of the wolves as dangerous animals, like white sharks, for example. And here it's a problem, I think, of the way we are in modern society. The fact is that nature programs are all well and good. We like to watch our animals in 2D, but only in 2D. And it seems that as soon as we come across them in 3D, in real life, our instinct, our reflex remains the same, and that is to kill them. Thank you very much.